This is Shirley with Spirit of Matter, and this is an episode that deals with Aries in Aries. Okay, so the ascendant is conjuncting the Sun in Scorpio in 8 degrees Scorpio with the Sun 9 degrees Scorpio. And the midheaven is 12 degrees Leo. So the midheaven is ruled by the Sun in the first house. And it was a Sun hour, but right now it's a Venus hour. This is not a Mercury day. It's basically coming to be a Jupiter day, but because it is before sunrise, yes, I'm recording to you before sunrise, then it is still a sun night. So we also have the ruler of nighttime, that is the sun right before sunrise. And the ruler of the hour is Venus. So Venus is in the 11th house in Virgo, 23 degrees Virgo, separating from a trine to Uranus and applying to trine Pluto, while tightly opposing Neptune. Yes, this is where Venus is. The moon in 3 degrees Cancer, sextile in Lilith, very tight orb, separating from a trine to Saturn. Saturn really has only 1 or 2 days before it turns direct. So all things Saturn are slowed down and getting ready to become stricter. So if you need to let go of, I don't know, eating sweets or a certain body routines or certain structures, then now it's kind of like, if you have addiction, you had a relapse, so now it's kind of like the last time before you quit. And that could be the experience of Saturn. Or you suddenly begin to do things and they actually become easier, or that something is going very, 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 very slow, but it will gain traction when Saturn comes direct, because you need to learn just one more thing, just a little more something. If you have documents missing in regarding to health, then you're either going to get these documents, or you're going to, because Saturn's bureaucracy, you're going to understand why it is missing, and perhaps why is it saving you that something is missing. That something is missing and it saves you is a very good indication of Saturn in Pisces. Saturn is documents and bureaucracy. Neptune or Pisces is missing, and a document missing, especially pertaining to your health. Maybe you need to travel and you don't have some documents. You will be very annoyed by this at first, but later you will find that this was a blessing in disguise. So if you're having that sort of an issue, it's not Mercury, but if it's a bureaucracy or a bureaucracy to do with medicine, you will understand that it's a blessing in disguise. So yeah. But now I want us to talk about Aries. And to do this, I'm going to do it from this chart. I will have to look up this day on the monthly astro calendar. Which, yes, we are already in November 2nd. So going to November 1 and just 1. This is astrosig.com. So it's my lunar return. But now let's see, we're talking about, because I do want the asteroids. It's really needed. So let's see, how do I do this? Okay. It can't be that we don't have asteroids for this placement. Let's see it again. This is November 1. So for November 1, we have the asteroids, and we are in November 2. So this is... Okay, this is workable because she hasn't changed the placement. Eris is in 24 degrees. Aries right with Rahu. She was there with the eclipse. They were dancing together very tightly, orbed. And the moon is now sextiling Aries. I'm sorry, squaring Aries because it's in Cancer. Oh, but it's still in the sextile because it is out of sign. So, and she is still squaring Pluto. Aries, if you know the variant Aries, it was Aries is ruled by Mars, so Aries is the discord card. The story for Aries was that she was not invited to the party because she did not adhere to social norms or like etiquette. Okay, it was not that she was amoral or a bad person. It was just like kind of, if you put, I don't know, me in a dinner with the King of England, then I would probably not know what fork to use, or the how to say something, or how to lay my hands around the table, and so I would probably not be invited to the party. Okay, and so for this reason, Eris was not invited to the party, but you must understand that not being invited to the party meant being excluded from resources. And that meant being exposed to the certain corruption that exists within society. Okay, while there's nothing wrong with having a couple of forks, the only reason a person would not know how to use a fork is because they are poor and they don't have access to this knowledge. And so when we don't invite them to the party, this person is more aware of what's hidden, the corruption that is hidden in society. I'm sorry, the combat planes are loud. And by the way, they have been loud for over a year before 7th of October, so it's nothing new, just so you know. And so Aries rules that which was excluded from the party and thus became aware of the corruption within, or the things that the people at the party don't see. Now, because this is not the party of kings, it is also the party of people, then in every society there are the people who you might not invite when you celebrate. And those people are excluded from resources, from support, from even housing, from land, from food, from water, okay? And those people pay attention to that thing that we are not aware of because they are exposed to this earlier. So if you've been having Aries experiences in your life, then you have been exposed to systematic corruption, which is very difficult to bridge because you begin to develop an existential gap between you and the people. And when it is squaring Pluto in Capricorn, the corruption you experience is systematic by the government, but still, because people are ruled by their governments, they don't understand what you're going through, or they don't understand the extent of it. Let's say you are homeless, so like, oh, well, the welfare has this shelter for homeless. Why don't you go there? You try to explain them why did you escape from there to save your life. And or a mother tries to ask for help and people call the welfare and call the police because she was homeless and they wanted to help her. So they found her a hotel, they paid for a hotel. This is a real case, by the way, it's not an example. And both of them, okay? And they found her a hotel, they pay for this hotel, and then because she went to complain about her abusive husband, and this could be a reverse gender in the same, we take the children the same, she was separated from her children. And the people who helped her, like, we booked the hotel for her and her children. Where's the problem? She was with the children in the street. And so she was accused that she was abducting them, but she was with the children in the street, and she was trying to save them from a violent person. She probably can imagine if she was just running away with her children, she could take a flight, she could go on a plane, She could do many things, but if she just wanted to abduct her children, but in this case, she wanted to escape violence. And so the children would be taken back and they would either be placed in an abusive situation or sold, or they would be forced with the father while she would be painted as the crazy person. And this is another case that I know of a woman who was sent 7 times to a psychiatrist. Unfortunately, that psychiatrist was not corrupt, which is a rarity. And she was sent 7 times to psychiatric look because she said her husband is raping her children. He also raped her, and her children are forcibly with the father. And the father is a religious person and is in the community of actually the Hasidim of Gur, which is actually living here a lot, although they are from Jerusalem. And they are befriending with some fund, and they are, it's just like everybody is against this woman, and even a lawyer that she tried to take, which I know was not able to tackle this case because there is a conflict of interests, and she got very let down, of course, and so and she has to do something about her children, but she can also not kidnap her children. But she knows they're being raped every day, and this has been going on before 7th of October, and this is still going on. And all these 3 cases are actual, real cases that happened. Okay, so the Aries case is where people cannot even begin to imagine how corrupt the system is because they are invited to the party to some level. Okay, when I was helped in the healthcare system, when I was saying, "Oh, take this pill, take that," because the pills don't really help me, but it did help me to get funding for a degree. I didn't understand that I was probably peaked because they thought they could use me to supposedly remove stigma from mental health while advertising pills, only that these pills are murderous. And I didn't know that. I was just like, it's not working for me. It's probably the side effect. And then I see the doctor's like, how do you know that that's from the pill? I was like, you stupid? Okay, then let's find out. I will remove the pill and then I will see if it's from the pill or not. Okay, this is the scientific way to do that. Okay, I'm going to eliminate the thing that I think is causing me trouble and see how I feel then. But you couldn't do it at a hospital and you didn't have housing outside of the hospital. So you had to really kind of find your way despite of that. But to me, it took many years to see how corrupt the system is of mental health care because you would have a psychiatrist who hugs you and is kind of like not understanding that somebody is actually threatening you, but you can't tell her because she'll think you're psychotic. But he would like hug you of like, oh my God, thanks God you didn't go to these people that were actually sent by your psychologist, but you cannot tell this to her. And it's just like hugging you and kind of like, oh my God, I'm so happy that you're here. You see that she's shaken with distress. So she believes what she does and she doesn't understand what the blind spot is. Or I got funding to study an entire degree, which was the reason I was kind of like my contract with life because I did not get along in the working market. I always wanted to study and I didn't understand why don't they not let me study. I said, what do you need of a profit line for me to study a course that you sell by your company? So that I can like get into that, and I got funding for studies. So I got some of my days. I was invited to the party in certain segments, but even then I noticed that some social worker wanted to speak with me, or even the psychologist of the university only accepted me, and she says to me, "I accepted you because." Of the abitur, not abitur, we have like psychometric exam that I had to take before university. It was like it's very good, and I was like, the fuck is going on? I came for mental health assistance. She's looking at my brain, and really, I'm just as smart as the next person. Okay, I just like to study more. So I'm like, what the fuck is going? And even my grades were not exceptional in any way, shape, or form. So it's like, why? Like, what the fuck is going on? And apparently I was kind of like picked in order to, in hope that I will help in marketing the system itself. And when it didn't work out, I was left without housing, I was left without help, I was left, you even have to, even wanted to do driving license, you even have to go to a doctor that prescribes that it's okay for you to do so. It's like I was really left out in the cold the minute I needed the help that I need. And they saw that I'm not going to have a daytime job. Like, if I could have a daytime job, I would not be suicidal at the first place, okay, during the 2008 crisis, because I was having the best jobs and I was not making the money because there was corruption and jobs got only more corrupt. Okay, this is a very Aries experience, and I have Aries in the second house of income, okay, of skill and income. Um, and so when I was invited to the party, I was like, I'm so grateful that we have welfare because I got funding for a freaking degree, and I would die if I would not find a way to study. I really like studying. Okay, see what I'm doing here is like looking at the chart every day and teaching and studying. And I do this, this is not a monetized channel even yet. Um, but these are things that keep me going. And I would keep doing them. During the war, there were like planes all over and we couldn't fly. So I started looking at my body and looking at the flight mechanism and wondering, with flexible robots, will we have planes that flap their wings, and why did we not design planes that flap their wings like birds? Because they are inspired. It's like that's what kept me going. So when you're invited to the party, you're not seeing the entire corruption of what actually going on. You see a part of the corruption. I said that I needed to be sick enough to be considered eligible to be funded, but healthy enough to be considered eligible to be funded for studies. And that was like you had to go like snake walk around the corruption that there is. And I thought that by speaking, by voicing, by raising awareness, it will help. And people really listen to you and nod, and you really think that you got somewhere until your social worker is having this issue with the throat and she's being fired, and the people who are meeting you are constantly being removed, and you think that they just change a job until one person tells you how they treat people in the workplace of the place that's supposed to help you. um, and and COVID comes in, and people can't meet you because of mask issues. But it's like, hey, I went through some certain sort of trauma. I can't always put a mask on. If you're putting a mask on, you're supposed to feel protected. And I was in 2 lockdowns just by the people, because of people that I met around this healthcare system. Okay, 2 lockdowns for a person who lives in a one-room apartment back then. Um, so you begin to see how people dissipate, and everybody that helped you was a person that broke the rules. From a person who brought me the books to study for the psychometric test, to a person that helped me to get some of my things from the apartment I used to live in with the car, which were not supposed to drive with me with the car, but I was escaping violence. And all of these people were basically breaking the rules. And if they didn't break the rules, I would not I would have to take even more extreme measures and even criminal activity measures, to escape violence. And the people who are with the rules, either they change, or they are being fired. Okay, so I understood that it's not the organization that was helping me; it was the people within the organization who broke the law of the organization to help me, because they saw that that was the right thing. Um, and that was a wake-up call that, hey, you have been invited to the party for so long, so you haven't seen the corruption that's going on, for people who are no longer invited. The minute I would not take a daytime job, and I would not market my business in a way that is like systematic, because I couldn't do it. I couldn't, like, I couldn't niche down to this. It's astrology. It's a different product. It's different with the times. And my schedule is different with the times. And those things with the algorithm, they don't work for me. I need to rethink business world in general. I need to have a business model that is more equitable. And I need to be having access that's more inclusive in the tax services. And now, when it came to work, which was my original wound, then and I am here to change things, but the gap, the existential gap, becomes so evident that even people who advocate for like exposing the corruption in the mental health tagging or whatnot, don't get why I can't just work in a pizza place. And when you begin to try to explain them what would it mean to be inclusive of me at work today when I'm almost 40 and I have my own endeavors and my own creativity that's a must to express, and I understand the cost of living when it comes to my health. If I give that up, it is just a suicide mission. The existential gap is too big. Okay, this is the Aries experience, and it can be in many ways. Aries in Aries is about identity. It's about asserting things and doing things your own way. It's about paving the path for yourself, which is even more difficult because in Aries you pave the path for yourself. It's not about people helping you so much. And when it comes to things like income and your path is innovative, it's very difficult to stay on track and remind yourself that you are creating something that's probably very useful to society, it's probably very big, because nobody did what you are doing before. And it's very difficult to understand that, because when it comes to how I make a living and what I spend my money on, whenever you try to get like help or assistance, you're going to be standing out. And with Eris, your experience is going to be radically different. But it is not just the second house. Okay, Aries is where we need to be more inclusive in our lives. This includes self-stigma, but this also includes stigma or just not being aware that we have been ignorant of people who are simply born different. Okay, it could be neurodivergence because Aries rules the head. So neurodivergence. It can be about your identity. So it can be gender identity, but not just gender identity. Okay, for a lot of us Israelis, we are mixed. Okay, we have ancestors in 3 continents, sometimes more. So when people would say, well, go back to where you came from, we're like, that's the entire world. I was like, I can have a summer house in Africa and a summer house in Netherlands and a summer house in Ukraine and a summer house in Caucasus and a summer house in Israel because I was born here. So, so like, there's no problem for me to have the summer houses in this place, but how does a single gender non-conforming person feels in all of these places? How safe it is to travel alone at each and every step of the day, including in Israel? And how practical is your saying? And that would still mean that I have a summer house in Israel because I was born here. That's where I came from. I came from a mama's womb in Kfar Saba hospital in 1984, May 6th, around 3:30 in the morning. So that's where I exited my mama's womb. So that's the location. And so this is another one of these, okay, the identities that are unusual, and to be inclusive of them when we speak about something. But it can also be the face. Okay, people that have something unusual, even with the way they look or the look of their faces, because Aries is the face, and they can be subject to. I remember I even saw a person that had an unusual eye color, and they were very, very beautiful, but they were bullied for their eye color. It's just like, it's so freaking weird. Okay, so it's the people who are not invited to the party, and because they're born different, they're seeing this corruption of society. And it's not just the corruption of high society or the elite, it is also the corruption of society in general. And so even within the marginalized people, it's sometimes difficult to bridge the gap of a few different existential gaps. Okay, there's this one person that was, and I have a friend that was betrayed by everybody around her. She likes to sing, and she's very beautiful. She likes to dance, and she was always supporting people. But she was betrayed, and she was made to believe that she's psychiatrically ill. So she tried Seroquel, and she saw what it does, the beta blockers, and then she's like wised up and says, I'm going to kill the entire industry of doctor, but she was betrayed by her psychologist. So I'm going to kill the entire field of talk therapy, the entire field of psychiatry, and I'm a person who's doing public relations. Like, come on, they messed with me. But when I talked to her, she was like, well, why can't you like work at the pizza? I'm working at the pizza, and I'm like looking at her, and I'm like, girl, we have an ocean between us. Because I came to change workplaces, and I'm trying to explain, like, psychiatry answers something like, if you're not getting along in the working market or and to make an income, then it would be only psychiatry that would resolve the question, because it would either get funding for studies, or for some people help for this, for that, but only if you take these pills or those pills. And so because we don't have solutions for people who are different, and then they're not supported, and we don't accept the different in our society, then people can't make an income, and then they feel hatred and detached from the world. So like, I'm voting to be of the light, okay, not to be like Hitler and to cause discord and to cause everybody to fight, because this is the dark side of Aries, where she can stop to believe that she will ever be accepted. And the only way for her is to cause such tremendous chaos that is enlightening to the society, which is the world where we see today, but not the first world war that we've seen. So you see that even with different people who have been having Aries experience, that were exposed to the corruption of the entire society, you still have different existential gaps, because they will still have this blind spot of like, what, but why can't you work? It's like, you are such a peace person, you're such a innovative person, you're such a talented person. Why can't you just work at the pizza? Like, I'm not supposed to work at the pizza. I tried to work in those daytime jobs. I was either sick, exposed to corruption, sexually harassed, or fired. I tried. And I understand that it's not healthy for me, because I need to do something different in the world. And when I'm in alignment with that, then the gates open. But because it involves exposing corruption, then I meet this corruption. I have to speak about it. And this corruption also pertains to our workplaces. Okay, ask for grander freedom to do us in Aries, and asks for establishing our identity, and it asks for acknowledging the intricacies of things. So this is just one example, but this is also to understand that it's not like all the Aries people can flock together, because they are having existential gaps in between one another. Okay, it's like, you've exposed that corruption, but you still have that blind spot. In the place where you have that blind spot, somebody talks to you about it, like, you're lazy. Oh no, this is a conspiracy theory. I won't even. And like, didn't you just say things that would be considered conspiracy theory by others? Yeah, but that is flat earthers. Okay, so this is just how the Aries story goes, and it's why those people find it difficult to gather together and play the discord card. And so the Aries story was, she was not invited to the party, so she planted a golden apple. She sent somebody who is accepted to the party, and put the golden apple inside. So he was thinking he was bringing a gift, and he brought the golden apple, and inside there was a note that says, to the fairest. And that got all the ladies to fight each other, the goddesses to fight each other. And eventually she sent this Trojan horse that started the Trojan War. Okay, she's sending somebody who is legit and exploding the party. Okay, if I take a look at my story with the healthcare system, I basically have been through all these places and have been able to navigate my way because I was accepted into the party, especially when I was studying for a first degree, and I was looking at things and I would speak the same jargon that my doctors speak. Um, but then I exploded the party from within because I saw the corruption. I couldn't deal with that. So you could have those experiences with Aries too. So some parties you're accepted to, and then you kind of like become the whistleblower, um, or unbeknownst to you, you are exploding. You're causing everybody to fight each other. You don't even understand why. Yeah, that happened to me in academia as well. Um, where I was a Me Too veteran, but I didn't understand that this was sexual harassment because I was more concerned about the energy attempts to control me, what people call psychic attack, or to try to interfere with my nervous system. I was like, there's no way I'll be able to talk about this. So I tried to talk about things that are like grand to society and the intergenerational gap. And it's like, why is it to cover the whole shebang? And I was basically exposing the person who did it, but that was not even the intention. I was like, let's see, how do we resolve this. So I was not going to court because court is corrupt, and also I did not look to cut ahead. I was looking to change a system. I was offering innovation, so that exposed my entire university. I was addressing the innovation cards, and they literally changed the publicity of the university to excellency instead of innovation. So it was like I had way more impact than I believed I had, because you feel helpless in this situation. I didn't believe anybody reads me, um, which, because on Facebook, if nobody engages with your posts or your satire, you just see it as like nobody cares. But that was not the case. Apparently, I didn't see the kind of like fanfics that were written about this. Apparently, there were some. I didn't see them. I'm glad. It's like I can't even. Um, all respect to the people who did it, but it's like it's too fucking triggering. And the thing is that it was just so. Okay, it was not me pulling the Discord card and causing everybody was fighting everybody there. Literally, everybody was fighting, and I can't say that it doesn't bring you to kind of like all these corrupt people are fighting together. It's kind of bring you this joyous feeling, but that was not even my intention. I was like, let's go with what I do want. Let's go with pleasure culture instead of rape culture. Let's explain, like, instead of explaining what he did wrong, let's explain what do I want to feel and how do I believe I can achieve that. Okay, and so that was more important. But this was exactly that place of a person who was accepted into the party, exploding the entire party. And those party included Aries people as well. Okay, so people who were marginalized from society as well, and trying to kind of like accommodate for each other while absolutely not giving up me here. Um, so that is a lot of ridiculousness and satirical happenings happening together. Everybody's just fighting everybody. War is ridiculous is one of the greatest Aries cards of enlightenment. War is ridiculous. This began with 1929 when Eris ingressed into Aries, and Aries is the sign of war. Aries puts war to ridicule. It puts identity to ridicule as well. Okay, as a person who has two genders, I get confused with my own pronouns. I kid you not. Okay, so I would probably be called transphobic by people, even though I have two genders. Um, So this is how Eris can put to ridicule the values of the sign. When she was in Pisces, Pisces is about myth. It's about the no borders. It's about some sort of unity. And Adolf Hitler had Eris in Pisces, and he had this Jupiter and Moon kind of enclosing Aries, if I'm not mistaken. And he was really wanted to be included in the party of connection to the motherland. So he did what he could. And it really looked like a satire because he was having this, brown hair, kind of dark hair, I think dark eyes as well, I'm not sure. But he didn't, and he was Austrish, and he spoke about the Irish family, and he was an artist, and he couldn't do the 9 to 5. When I began to read Mein Kampf, then first of all, he's awfully relatable, which is probably why you weren't allowed to read Mein Kampf, because he was a voice that could get you to be hooked into his conversation. It was seemed very authentic. So Mercury Aries, so it's very authentic. So he could get you hooked on his words. And the thing is that he said, I cannot do the 9 to 5. I cannot be an officer. His father wanted him to be a clerk. He said, I respected my father, but I loved my mother. So you can understand what losing his mother meant to him. Moon in Pisces. So the thing is that he was excluded from being a part of the motherland. He was feeling bad that he was not called to fight. It's like, why are Austrian people not called to fight? So on the one hand, he had this artist soul. On the other hand, he had this warrior soul, and he was not included. And so he was homeless, and he was probably bullied and tortured as homeless, and then you get into jail. You have to get into jail if you're homeless. It's like, it's freaking cold, you're gonna die, so you have to make troubles to get into jail. So if you think about Charlie Chaplin and Adolf Hitler, you see that they're not all that the satire and the caricature of Hitler might not have been that different from Hitler himself, okay? Hitler just did the satire, but with political action. And the political action would bring a situation where you have a working camp, and on it is written Arbeit macht frei, but this is just the torture that Hitler dealt with himself in the working culture, okay? Because he was an artist. Artists cannot adhere to schedule. They cannot do 9 to 5. They cannot do monotonous work. And, there are just people like this in society. And he painted paintings. They were very beautiful, but they were not Impressionism. They were not with the trends of the time. And so he was excluded from the times. And so he created the times that nobody can exclude Hitler from today, because you cannot talk about those years of 1929 to 1945 without mentioning the name Adolf Hitler. Can you imagine? Okay, he was painting paintings that were not with the spirit of the time, and so he was excluded. He did not even have food to eat, because his skills was not with the spirit of the time, and it eventually ended in such a way that it traumatized everybody, and now you cannot talk about these times without talking about Adolf Hitler. This is crazy. And unfortunately, he was putting people through the torture that he went through. And so you think about the working camps with the Arbeit macht frei. This is exactly what the experience of a person who is an artist, and all is being offered is jobs that he would get fired with sooner than later, because it would ruin his health, and then all he has to do is be homeless and in jail, and see if he can join a guerrilla, because this is what you gotta do in jail. You gotta join a guerrilla, something, and to fight for something. Hitler would fight for something he believes in, and he wanted to connect with the motherland. Okay, he was excluded from having a home. Basically, a motherland is a home. He was excluded from having a home. He was excluded from having income. He was excluded from being able to do what he came here to do, to have to live his own life path in a way. I really came here to paint. He was excluded in so many ways that later it became a satire that flipped on its head and basically became a satire. But that satire was multiple genocides. And with the LGBTQ extermination thing, and it's very likely that he was not straight. And so it was kind of causing people to feel as terrible as he felt on a mass scale of humanity. Okay, it was a little bit of a Goodell point, and now we all talk about Hitler and we all bash Mein Kampf, but Mein Kampf was in no way unusual. He was affected by people like Churchill, That was the prevalent scholarly thought. And when he would look into occult, which he was interested in, then the same occult that are running this world war were running that world war. And this is not the Jews, okay? So you have to understand this. I saw, and I will name, because this I do name. I saw Mark Bersky saying, "No, the Jews control the world." The Jews, yes, there are very wealthy Jewish families like the Rothschilds. I don't know if the Rockefellers were Jews, but that are running a lot of the world's wealth. But that is not the whole story. And when you look into the occult, into the ritual abuse that's being done, it's being done with certain secret societies that to get into them, you do have to declare that you believe in a monotheistic God, although they accept Hindus. But it doesn't matter which God. So there are Christians, there are Jews, and there are people who are completely atheists, and all they have to do is to declare that they believe in God, because then they learn about the occult and the esoterics, and the way that they do occult and esoterics is including blood ritual that is absolutely unnecessary. You could use hibiscus instead. I'm thankful to African teachers of ritual that explain that to me. So all these slaughters that we see of babies, of children, and people beheaded, raped, it was like you could just replace that with hibiscus and get the same result, better result, because this one is bad for fertility, but hibiscus is good for fertility. Grow hibiscus is good for fertility. Behead babies and rape their mothers, bad for fertility. Okay, so. This is and that is nothing to do with one religion. It's basically to do with the way that they do occult, and they are secret societies, and those secret societies have world leaders and so on and so forth. I can say when I just learned about the Enlightenment and everybody in the Enlightenment was a Mason, then I said I want to be Mason too. And they required secrecy. There was a lodge in Israel, there is probably a lodge in Israel that accepts women, but they wanted me to be secretive, and I cannot. So I could say, well, I'm an atheistic God, okay, fine, I can say that, whatever. They don't mind if it's like Jewish or Christian or whatnot, or Muslim. Okay, they accept Muslims too. So just if you've been wondering. So it's like, and it sounds very inclusive, like all the great people of the Enlightenment were doing that. I really want to be a part of that. But I could not keep secrets, and so I did not join the lodge. Okay? I was this close to be Mason. Just because I don't do secrecy. I had no idea what this thing is. Now that I'm learning about this, I understand that it's like it's the entire Enlightenment that's being put to question here. And the world leaders, and some of the things they did were good, like, you know, having the state of Israel with its midheaven on Procyon on the minute is good. It keeps the country from causing a nuclear disaster. Like, it's great. The Declaration of Independence, there are a lot of good things in it. But they will always have like a blind spot, and that blind spot was like, did you just perform a blood ritual of raping and sacrificing women, men, and children, and torturing elderly people? What? And that was a ritual. It is a ritual. It's a sacrificial ritual. Okay? So that was something that Hitler himself was just a part of, but he was slacked for it, while other people got away with that. And so there is even the joke of a person who, would you like a governor that drinks, and, you know, goes to prostitutes, or would you like that gambles, or would you like a government that, I don't know what else, like, remember the other habit, or would you like a government that's vegetarian, that likes children, that likes animals, that likes nature? And they were like talking about Churchill, I think Clinton, but I think it was probably earlier than Clinton, somebody else, and Adolf Hitler. And so Churchill is presented as the antidote to Adolf Hitler. It's like, you don't like his drinking and gambling, but we sure would like him for a governor, not Adolf Hitler, when Hitler was inspired by Churchill. Okay? So I guess if we look into Great Britain, we would, even in Churchill's time, we'll probably see things that we don't want. If we look into the United States, we'll see concentration camps. In 2023, and the breaking of the First Amendment, of people who try to talk about this. Yes, Blaine. Gosh. So, yeah. Now, when we talk about what Eris was in Pisces, which was being included in a certain myth, like the motherland, then Eris in Aries is about being included, also in war, unfortunately, but it's about being included as a person, as an identity, is on an individual level, not on a part of the great vast, a part of the myth, okay, part of the motherland, or as an artist. But with although yeah, there are artists Aries, the sun exalts in Aries. We must not forget this. But it's about being included as the person who does themselves, and it's about asserting ourselves through the card of discord. This is where you feel the society is so corrupted that to just do you, you have to make way on a very survivalistic level. Okay, to just live somewhere, you have to tend to so much corruption. Okay, the corruption with real estates. Yeah. The corruption in entrepreneurship. We presented the model of entrepreneurship that is basically industrial. And people got a heart attack when they were in the 30 under 30. Okay, I won't say no names because I don't remember, but I have her face. Okay, she was in the 30 under 30. She was teaching the models of making your business model like McDonald's, so that people are replaced easily, so you can fire people easily and not lose the identity of the business. And then at around, I don't remember, she was in her 20s, and she got a heart attack. Okay, a lady from a white family, privileged family, that was aware of her privilege, and had a place to stay and had a company. She got a heart attack because she was so succumbed to hustle culture. Okay, my grandfather died at around 91. When he survived the Holocaust, he had typhus. He ran through the forests. He was told also in Israel that it's too bad that he didn't die in the Holocaust. Like many Holocaust survivors, he opened a grocery store. Okay, he would eat like one cabbage in a soup, half a cabbage, sorry, in a soup for like nearly the rest of his life, with some, bread and yogurt, and that was food. And he died at 91. Okay, it was not just genes. It was also that Arbeit macht nicht frei. And he knew this because his job, he was the person who looked okay. So he went out of the ghetto to bring food and into the ghetto to bring it back. And then when the gates were open, because there was a rebellion or so, then he ran away. And people were shooting at them. Then he ran through the forests of Italy. So he didn't get shilumim. Okay. He didn't get any money from Germany, because he was not running through Germany, although he was a Holocaust survivor. And so he had to make it on his own. And through being around food, he made it on his own. He did not become wealthy, but he sustained. And together with my grandmother, who worked at a chocolate factory, literally, she was a chocolatier. So they sustained. Okay, he died at 91. My grandmother died at 80 something. Yeah, around 80 something, in her 80s, from diabetes. So, and so we don't even know why he died. Like, he could even live longer, both of them probably, but he could even live longer. There was some corruption with the hospital. Like, the minute he got into the hospital, he died. And that was at 91. Arbeit macht nicht frei. So that's Aries. Now I want to go through the entire zodiac, And I want to tell you about first the placements that are associated with Aries. So first of all, it's your Aries house, especially the last phase of Aries. If you have any planets in around between 20 to 29 degrees of Aries, you are being you have been selected for the Aries enlightenment endeavors. So first of all, any planets around these Aries, or if you have any planets in Aries to be particular, they are co-present with Aries, and that has been so since the 1920s and will continue to be so until her ingress into Taurus. I don't know exactly when that happens. We have some years. She moves very slowly. She takes 559 years to surround the zodiac. So you're also culminating a 559-year cycle and opening a new one at every time Aries changes position. We are still in the process of closing the Aries in Aries since the 1920s. Okay, so we need to think about 100 years ago, because we are about to close this 100-year cycle with just one sign. Okay, think about Pluto and Capricorn. It's since 2008. We're closing that one. And so we're dealing with all the corruption that Pluto exposed. It's like, how do we react to this now? And now, unfortunately, we are dealing with the years of the 20s, and kind of being asked, well, what has humanity learned about being inclusive? What has humanity learned about the Aries experience before she will ingress into Taurus, which is highly territorial, sensual, and whatnot. So any placement in Aries sign, okay, especially the last phase, okay, the last 10 degrees, and where your Mars is, because Mars is ruling Aries. Wherever your Mars is, okay, for example, I have Mars in the 9th house. My Aries experience happened around income, and then I wanted to revert to studies, and I was given funding for a degree. And then on the 2nd degree, it happened that I was a Me Too veteran in academia by a person that, by the way, has his Jupiter conjunct in Aries, okay? So this is how two people that have Aries experience also had an existential gap between them, so much so that I named our conflict as a part of the clash of societies, okay? The clash of civilization. Okay. Unfortunately, this is very true. We're kind of like marking up the world wars, and I saw stuff like about this, and so we're part of the people who brought these conflicts on a very minuscule level. Okay, this is like billions are a part of it. It's not like a chosen few, but the thing is that each of us was exposed to certain corruption, but had blind spots to another. For example, he had blind spots to the fact that he's making me a Me Too veteran, and that is not acceptable. Not because of norms, not because of religion, not because of spiritualism, because my Venus in Taurus cares about, you know, um, um, being respected, also sexually. So that's just values. You have Venus in Aries, it's about fighting and winning. Not me. Like, get yourself a woman with these placement. Yeah, but I have Mercury there, which is the ruler of my 7th. So the thing is that the 9th house, which was academia in that case, played a very important role in the Aries experience that I have been having. And also the people that were involved with this had been having themselves. Okay, so I don't discount that. And also had a situation with people from abroad in lesser extent. Even from a person who was from Germany, who was a musician. I'm not kidding you. Okay, was a musician from Germany. It was very beautiful songs and so. But he had like a blind spot to do with willing consent. And he was like dreaming in his own head, but there was things that he had a blind spot too. And then my response was kind of like the Aries card, because I didn't know how to have a center. Okay, when your sexual boundaries are violated, then you basically are decentralized as a person. Decentralization is great, but if you're decentralized as a person, then it's very difficult for you to just stand up to a certain boundary and then walk out, and you feel like kind of your life is Mein Kampf. Now, he was from Germany, okay, I'm from Israel. So that was very, very hilarious, but it was in no way funny. Because you really had no place to go to. My psychologist did not understand what I'm talking about. And then the paradigms that we did have was like narcissistic abuse, gaslighting. It was like these are two people that made a lot of mistakes. Okay. And both of them tried to get therapy, and both of them were told like rubbish. And so the personal conflict became to be like catalyst for, I didn't recall him trigger before people talking about trauma triggers and so. And I saw that there was certain things that were even before that were present, and there's certain things that I saw like that were horrid, and I was like something to do with violation of women and the misunderstandings of nature and stuff like that. Some from his ideologies, but also my ideology. I had like an Erich Fromm sort of kind of love ideology that was not taking attraction into account, and so that was not good for me either. Okay, now you see how worldview and income play a part. Worldview, income, and expenses play a part. It's like the second and the ninth house, because Aries is my second house and the ruler is in the ninth house, which is academia, worldview, or even meeting a musician that happened to have been from Germany and having a very weird dynamic that is very confusing for both, but also very destructive and of the Aries type of weird. Okay, so you need to look at your Aries placement, and you need to look at your Mars, okay, where it's at. Now, both of these houses are going to act in a similar way. For example, I went to academia because I couldn't get along in the working market. Okay. Later, not with this 2007 case, but it was also interesting because my skill had to do with writing, and also I did some singing. And then I met a person from abroad that was singing and just made video responses to people that I liked, and had more views than I had. So we would kind of raise up the ladder by contribution. And that's basically how we met. So it was like doing something of skill. Okay, it's kind of perfecting my skill, doing something myself that I actually enjoy. That got me into like international arena, and created that experience there, which was horrid. So that was how these two houses operated. Because I was going abroad and speaking with people abroad, or actually something, in both cases had to do with the worldview, or being in academia. So this happened either with interaction from abroad, it was digital. I have Mercury in Aries, it's digital communication, or in academia. And then I wrote a satire on Facebook. I have a wound around there's a Chiron in Gemini, so it's Mercury Chiron. And so I needed to express myself to the masses. It's not a Dear Diary thing. And so you see that the way that I needed to express myself is also unusual. It's kind of like an Aries type of expression that had no rules that could be understanding that. So it's a very deep existential gap. People later in the media, people thinking you're trying to expose someone. Like, no, I'm trying to expose the entire corruption of the whole thing. It's just one person. Even if God forbid, let's say you take this one person down, okay, it wouldn't solve. Why do I say even God forbid? Because it wouldn't solve my problems. It would just be another person, okay. So it's like, how do we tackle to the source of this? It's like it's in the system, corruption, it's a different thing, and we have to be more inclusive in that. And Eris really points that we need to be more inclusive of something, okay. And I also said we have to be also more inclusive of the people like them. Like, it's not that I want them to not have to be excluded. I just need to have to be free, and so for that, the place for me and the place for them. So, and I literally used the word 2 countries for 2 peoples. Okay, like this, I literally did. 2 countries for 2 peoples. Okay, which is used in the Israel-Palestine context. So you can see how political that was. That is perhaps the Pluto Aries square. Now, if you have, and this I'm beginning to go through the signs, if you have ascendant in Aries or Mars in Aries, or Mars in the first house, okay? Ascendant in Aries or Mars in the first house, then this pertains to your life path. It could pertain to your appearance. You might be one of the people who were born different, okay? It pertains to, you could be accident prone, but in a way that exposes certain corruption, okay? Let's say the type of accidents where people had taken the vaccines and then had a weird experience on the wheel, and some of them died because of a car accident. Then and there's an Israeli lawyer looking into that. So that could be like that type of an accident. Okay, it's not just an accident; it's an accident that has corruption behind it, which could or could not be a sort of assassination. Doesn't necessarily mean assassination. Um, it could be poisoning. Okay, Aries also to do with poisoning, so you could be more susceptible to the Aries variant, which is global poisoning. And so you really need to understand that those things that are considered conspiracy theories are not. And when you speak to people of different marginalized societies and are more inclusive to them, and some of them, in some of the cases, you will be pointed towards that because this is your life path and this is also your appearance. Okay, your face stands out in the crowd in some sort of way. It doesn't necessarily mean there's something physical going on. It could be even to do pertaining to your energy. Okay, what you project in the world, you first encounter is steer discord within the people around you, and that can reflect itself in feeling very much secluded from the world. And this is because you came here to bring a certain experiences of enlightenment that are not so accessible. And unfortunately, this crisis involved in many of the cases. Satire could do you well, okay? Artistic expression where you could express the satirical nature of war. If you haven't gotten to the fact that war is incredibly ridiculous, because it might get, then whenever you can exemplify how ridiculous war is, and how being more inclusive is actually easier than having a world war. And we really don't need to have a world war for women to be able to vote. Okay? That was the changes that were happening, okay? And or to be more inclusive financially. Yeah. And so we really don't need social credit score to feed the hungry, even if they're different than you, because that's the only reason you would get social credit score, the digital ID you cannot buy even in the grocery shop. Then this is what a person who doesn't have a credit card feels when they go to Starbucks to get a coffee in Amsterdam, and you think, oh, coffee is not important. Well, you haven't been sleeping all night and you still need to function and try to look for work. Coffee is important. Okay? And the big chunk of coffee that would also keep you not hungry for a couple of hours is very much important, because you don't have money to buy food. So yeah. This is first house is about your body, your appearance, your routine, not your routines, your body, your appearance, your life path, and the first impression that you make is also where you interact with the seventh. So this is also the type of partner that you make, but it's not from the seventh. It's just that when your partner meets you, they need to accommodate for an Aries person. So you're going to be experiencing it also as a seventh house conflict, simply because when you are a part of the relationship, you're the Aries person, there's an existential gap between you and your partner that cannot fully be bridged. So yeah, Aries, Aries sign or Mars in the second house. So you could just listen to my story because I have it in the second house with Mars in the ninth. So you just listen to my story. Okay, you are more susceptible to be like me or like Hitler, and it's still, yeah, I am still alive. So I'm just still trying to be of the light and sustain that. So like I'm still alive. My story is not done yet, so we don't know. This could be very meta. So the thing is that the way you make your money, the way you spend your money is your own, and that exposes a lot of corruption. Just that, okay? Your decision to spend money on something can expose a lot of corruption, okay? Let's say I have Mars in the ninth house, so I would spend money on either traveling or studies, okay? And so just by doing that, I saw how inaccessible spending money on studies is. And studies was so important for me that I was like, the only reason that I would ever agree to get in debt would be of studies, which is how I began to get into debt before 2008. And that would be triggering me because it's also values. Okay, so the values of studies were very important to me, and I did not understand why am I being excluded from having the money to study what I want, and not just what would give me a grant. So this is it, this is what you spend your money on. It's your value system that exposes and is both shaped by and exposing corruption. Okay. And is how you make your money. Okay, so you could be making money in a way that people don't like, or people is somehow taboo. Okay, for me, when I made money from astrology, then it created a problem with the person who was betrayed by healers and shamans and so on. Thought, no, this all is talk therapy and personally advised, blah blah blah, and no, I want this out of the world. This is not fair. And da 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 da. What you do for a living is not good. I'm like, okay, this is what I can do for a living, so I cannot steal. And even this is not something that, with the whole corruption, it's not something that I can totally sustain myself, but I still do because it's that important to me. So, so it's like freedom of occupation is something that you will it will expose corruption. Okay, what you do for a living will expose corruption. Also, your decisions of what you make for a living or how you make for a living, your decision to become independent can be affected by corruption, but also exposing a lot of corruption. This is where you will have your Aries experiences. And again, if this is you, you want to listen to the introduction all the way through, because this is something you might have a blind spot because your existential crisis is different to mine. Then you really want to listen, okay? If Aries is your third house or Mars is in your third house, then the level of the way you need to be more inclusive, or the Aries experiences could be coming from your neighbors, your siblings. It can range anywhere from a person having one brother that needs gender affirming surgery and the other that has gone through gender affirming surgery and regrets that and was not informed of the entire implications of the process. So one is litigating, prosecuting, what the other one could not deal with. It is Gemini here, but it's not, we have Mars and Gemini, it could be that absolutely in the third house. But you have kind of like these two totally distinct Aries experiences, where one would die without a gender affirming surgery and the other one is battling suicide actually because of this surgery. So it can be ranging something like that, or it can be your daily routines. It is also pertaining to the business that you own. Okay, so if you own a business, if you develop a business, you are exposing corruption, or this business exposes corruption, and you could have a pizza. Okay, you could, like, really, because if you think about it, most smugglings and drug dealing and human trafficking cartels, they operate through legit businesses. So you could be just exposing corruption. Like, you have a pizza and everybody think you smuggle something. You're like, I'm smuggling shit. Like, why are people looking at me like I'm the worst? Could I just have a pizza? Like, well, most people who do that monkey business, they have a pizza place. So we're gonna get that one, okay? That one is how it could play. So we have siblings, and it is communication. And so that can mean that it's just the way that you say something. It's just a word that you say. Okay, I have Mercury in Aries, and when I went through something that the most name that I could call it was like spiritual rape or soul rape. And that was very accurate, but it stirred up a lot of triggers from people who did not go through physical rape. It was actually the people who went through physical rape that understood me. But I got very scared because I was like, oh my God, I did not mean to say physical rape, but I just didn't understand how to express it, because it's like you experienced a lot of the non-physical experiences that people who deal with rape deal with, and you're trying to see what helps them so that maybe it will help me. And the only way you have to say is like a spiritual rape. But it was like, when I was saying it in around 2008, 2009, people were like coming against me, like wishing me to be group raped. I kid you not, like really weird stuff. So it was a word that was triggering people. And I'm like, well, isn't rape coercion? Because like the biblical meaning of the word rape is coercion. It's like, why does it steer so much? And only to find out that my original definition was accurate, and I even met people who went through physical violence. They were like, the most difficult thing for me was actually the psychological, which is not the same for people. Like people have different experiences, but I was like, oh shit, all of that nonsense I went through for over nothing. Like I wasn't even wrong. Okay, like I wasn't even wrong verbally. It was the most accurate, and eventually we run into an African people who teach how to eliminate spiritual rape or psychic attack type of rape using garlic. And I'm like, could you like save me the entire beta blockers that like, you know, like, what? The fuck is going on here? Okay, but how did I heal myself? By actually learning about inclusivity and speaking with people who were considered psychotic, shamanistic, shamans and healers from like different places in the world. And it was like from Africa, from someone who talked about like garlic. And I'm like, shit. Okay. Oh, fucking. And also by learning what helps people who did go through physical rape, and learning from them, but also learning from their like holistic medicine thingy. And so I was able to actually give good advice to people who went through rape, physical rape, by healing myself. So it's like they were helping me out and I was helping them out. And by the way, no money changed hands in this process. So third house could definitely be your word. You say a word that steers everybody up, and it's like 20 years later, you're like, that's the most accurate description of that. Okay, so wordings that are unusual, communication that is unusual. Okay, you could say something, people project stuff on it, or the existential gap is so far from people that they don't even get like those things. Okay, Adolf Hitler had Mercury in Aries, which is also the third house is not Mercury, but the house is communications. And when people read Mein Kampf, like he was awfully relatable, but his book was banned because to understand where he was going wrong, we would need to understand where our entire world leaders were going wrong. We were thinking in like, you know, Churchill is better than Hitler. So yeah. If you have it in the fourth house, so the fourth house, well, this can be another particularly excruciating experience, because the fourth house is your, mama, come in, I'm recording. Come in, I'm recording. את יכולה להיכנס, אני מקליטה פשוט. תכף מסיימת. כן, you can open the door. Wait. Okay, I gotta stop.